Hello, listeners. Been wondering how you can help the show? Probably not. But here are 5 things you can do. 1. Subscribe. Support the show by clicking the subscription link in the show notes. 2. Review on iTunes, on our website, www.afraidofnothingpodcast.com, or on whatever app you listen to. 3. Donate. When you go to our website, click the cute coffee cup icon. Or in the show notes, click the subscription link. 4. Share. Sharing really is caring. Tell your friends and even your enemies to check out the show. 5. Watch. Wait a minute, it's a podcast, not a movie. Actually, it's both. Check the show notes to find out where to watch the documentary. You can also rent it on Prime Video. That's it. Oh, one last thing. Enjoy this episode. Hey, everybody. We have another 5-star review, this time from Kathy Castelveter. Kathy writes, "Loving Afraid of. I love the podcast. We booked our ghost tour in Salem with Dr. Vitka after listening to Afraid of. He was absolutely amazing. I was a very spiritual person at one time, but life has beaten me down very low. The guests inspire me to do better, work harder to achieve my goal. Please don't stop. Hey, Kathy, thank you for listening, and we won't. And hang in there. Things will get better. We're rooting for you." And another shout-out to Danny Perez. Danny gave me a custom Afraid of Nothing Ouija board, and it's awesome. Thank you, Danny. Visit Danny and Lauren Perez's website at www.theradicals.org. That's www.theradicals, RADIKALS.org. Last time on the Afraid of Nothing podcast, starring actor Gene Silvers.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Good to hear your voice again.
There were chills.
So you want to hear my experience?
Yeah.
You with me so far?
Yeah.
You guys are with me so far?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And spills.
When my hand hit the rock, my feet flipped over my head, and then I started to go into what I guess you'd call a tomahawk spin. Have you ever seen those cartoons where you see the tomahawk flipping over and over and over again?
Yeah.
That pretty much was me.
And thrills.
Hi, I'm Candy. Okay, you are. Yeah!
Tonight, we go down a spiritual path. So join us with a glass of whatever gets you mellow.
In a world where nothing is known, nothing is certain, reality is not real. Wake up! Be afraid of nothing. I'm Bob Heskey. Robert.
The host with the ghost.
This is my podcast, based on my paranormal documentary, Afraid of Nothing. Each episode, we talk to people who see life and the afterlife through a different lens. Join me.
Who is this large man? And what's he doing in our bedroom?
As we lift the veil and open our minds to see beyond our eyes lie. This is Afraid of Nothing.
So you asked me earlier, how did I come to this understanding? I mean, it was gradual. I've always had a feeling of that there was more to existence than the material reality. I think when a soul is evolved enough, not that I'm that evolved, but everything is relative. But I think when a soul reaches a certain point of its evolution, of its time throughout, basically going from a slug to an amoeba to a fish to to a mammal to a human to like a lower, you know what I mean? Just I believe over millennia, a soul gradually evolves, and at a certain point, when I guess your soul is ready, you'll start to be awakened to some degree. You'll start to sense that there's more to this reality than meets the eye. And then any number of things can happen to begin that awakening. One of the ways that sort of really showed it to me was LSD.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, that's actually it's interesting because it's, I have a few friends who have tried different drugs. They share similar sentiments to that. I don't know if you want to go into your experience about that, but if you do, go for it.
Oh, absolutely. I guess again, it was at the time where I was curious for whatever reason. I think maybe something happened to me emotionally, or I had not a very good childhood. Something. Usually, when you're suffering, you start to seek something deeper than meets the eye. And I don't know how I had the opportunity to do acid, but I'd always wanted to try it. And this was in my 20s, and I did it. And on that first acid trip, I just I started to literally feel like I wasn't my physical body. I started to feel like I was a spirit, and that the body was just this other thing.
Was it like a feeling of oneness, Gene? Were you part of the nature and part of the air and part of the water? Were you part of everything, or were you separate?
Well, that started to happen. Each experience is somewhat different. What happened was I started to feel this feeling of love, of bliss, and where my heart area would be. And I remember looking around the room and seeing lights, and the lights would get brighter for some reason. And I started thinking, God is light, God is light. And the more I had that thought, the brighter the room got. And then it appeared that a light was coming out of my chest in a sense. And I don't know. It was an amazing feeling. And then I had a friend who I was doing it with. I won't use his name, but he ended up writing a pretty big movie. This guy, he kind of went the other direction. He started making out with his girlfriend and went a very sensual direction. And I remember saying, I don't want to go in that direction. I want to use this opportunity to feel connected with life. And I remember I kind of freaked out a little bit. I ran out into the street, and I think I stopped a car and asked them to take me to the light, The
red light district.
It did give me that feeling, but acid also kind of takes you into your own psychological dark areas too.
Yeah.
It's really cool to actually hear you talk about this, because have you guys heard of DMT?
Oh, yes. 5-MeO.
Like the spirit molecule? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the complete science. I'm kind of naive on all of it. Some say it's like secreted by the pituitary gland, I think.
Or a frog, a spotted some kind of frog.
Yeah. There's like a few ways, and LSD and mushrooms and other kind of psychedelics can
ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, which I've done also.
It's funny that you mentioned LSD instead of ayahuasca. Was that less powerful, that trip, or what?
Ayahuasca, well, this was in like the late 80s. I didn't even know about ayahuasca. Someone had acid available, and that's what I did. I didn't even know what ayahuasca was till a few years ago.
And how was that experience? Was that similar? Did you feel...
It was amazing, but it wasn't nearly as powerful as acid.
Interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't. And a lot of the times the shamans purposefully don't make it that powerful because they want you to kind of explore the inner space and to be able to integrate it with yourself rather than just throw you into this realm. Whereas like DMT or 5-MeO, DMT is pretty much the apex of that type of drug. On DMT, you're basically blast off out of your body. Your ego gets obliterated. You become one with everything for 5 minutes, and then you're back in your body.
Yeah.
But each one of these drugs, I guess they have different degrees of potency. And taking the most potent one is not necessarily the best one for you, because if you're not ready for it, it could completely freak you out.
Yeah.
What I believe about these drugs are that there are in the human body these glands that I think there's, I don't remember what it's called. Maybe it's similar to where the third eye is, but there are these glands that scientists don't really know what they're for. And I believe in the human body, these glands correspond with these psychic senses. And for whatever reason, there are certain chemicals and elements that are able to open up these glands that can give you a doorway into the spiritual realm, which can be opened through meditation and spiritual practices in a much, much, much more gradual way. But these drugs can just sort of like open the door and throw you into this spiritual realm, ready or not.
Yeah.
At least it'll give you an experience of something more that you didn't know existed. And that's what happened to me. I did acid 4 times, and it showed me a realm of reality that I did not know existed. And it wasn't like alcohol or cocaine or one of these things that lower your consciousness. This did the opposite. It expanded my consciousness. And the last time I did it, the very last time on the 4th trip, I remember I became extremely paranoid and extremely anxious. It was horrible. I remember grinding my teeth very badly. And then this thought came into my mind, this biblical phrase. I don't know where I got it from, but it was, if you try to get into the kingdom of heaven uninvited, you will be thrown out, teeth gnashing.
Wow.
and I was literally gnashing my teeth. And I thought I had tried to get into the kingdom of heaven, so to speak, uninvited. I hadn't worked for it. And then at that point, I started thinking, well, how do you start to work towards these states of higher consciousness without drugs? And I came across a book in a bookstore about 1 week later in Manhattan. I don't remember how I found it, but it just jumped out at me. And the book was called Journey of Awakening. And it was by someone named Ram Dass. Have you heard of Ram Dass?
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, it's funny, Gene. I was going to interject real quickly because I want to talk about India, because it sounds like you're going to segue to India, right? Is that your trip to India and your teachings there?
Yes. Just to very quickly finish, Ram Dass was a psychology professor at Harvard at the same time as Timothy Leary. And in the preface of his book, he had done hundreds, if not thousands, of hits of acid and came to the exact same conclusion that I did.
Wow.
And then it was like, it was put there, this book, for me to read, And ultimately his conclusion was these acid trips will throw you into this deeper, more spiritual, if you will, more unified connection with everything, reality, and then throw you back and you're the same schmuck. It's like it hasn't really changed you. Intellectually it has, but you're still got the same fears, the same everything. And he came to realize that there are these men and women in India that through yoga and meditation had achieved these states without doing drugs, which led him to India in search of a guru. And then I realized that had to be my path.
So, Gene, from my understanding, you have interest in mysticism, which obviously we've been talking about, but it led you to live in India for a time. I totally want to hear like how that all came about and your time in India and what you discovered there spiritually and personally. And is this stuff that still is part of your life now?
Absolutely. I'll explain how I eventually got to India. So after I had read that book, cover to cover, Journey of Awakening, I came to realize that, the way to get to these states was through a gradual process of meditation and yoga and the Indian disciplines, that was their great contribution to the world was that. So I started looking for a path of meditation. And there were so many different kinds of paths, Zen meditation and Buddhist meditation and Kabbalah meditation, So I didn't know where to begin. I tried just meditating on my own, following my breath and basically my mind just spun, and I thought, well, it would probably be a great idea to learn it from a group, or at least with some structure. I don't remember exactly how, but I was on West 86th Street in Manhattan, and I saw this really cool brownstone, and it said on it, Siddha Yoga Dham. So I went into it, and inside there were pictures of this beautiful female guru. Her name is Guru Mai Chidvilasananda. I spoke to them, and they said, yes, we teach meditation here. And I wasn't that turned on because I didn't want to have a guru. I didn't want to have to follow a person. I just wanted to learn how to meditate. I started meditating with them, and my meditations seemed to be a lot better, at least meditating with that group of people. And so I continued to do that. I got my girlfriend at the time, this is no longer Sarah, and she got into it too, and we meditated and went to this meditation center. And then at a certain point, everybody started getting very excited that Guru Mai was coming to New York. I had no interest in seeing her. Again, I was not interested in following what I perceived as just a regular person. But my girlfriend, Tracy, she said, no, we should meet her. We should just see what this is about. Okay, I don't want to get involved in any cult or anything like that. I'm a cynical New Yorker. I wanted nothing to do with it. But because my girlfriend wanted to do it, we went to meet her. She came to the Manhattan Center, which is this giant arena on 34th Street. And Guru Mai came to give these programs. And we started going. They lasted about a week. And I don't know, just the energy there, it was remarkable. Even though my mind was dead set against following a guru, just meditating with that group, and they did these Sanskrit chants that just, I don't know, my whole body was vibrating when I did them. And then when I went into these meditations, it was extraordinary. So we did that for about a week. And then there was a program that they do something called an intensive. It's where the guru actually goes around and does something that they call Shaktipat. I don't know. Have you ever heard that term? No. Is it cool if I just describe something kind of technical in a mystical way?
You can take your best shot.
All right. I'm going to take my best shot. According to mysticism, Eastern mysticism, they describe something called the Kundalini.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's an energy that's at the base of your spine. They say it's coiled 3.5 times, and the symbol of it is the cobra. The spiritual energy remains dormant in your energy body, your astral body, for all of your many, many, many lifetimes, till one day this energy becomes awakened, and it starts traveling up your spine and pierces the different chakras. Okay? So apparently in this program, Guru Mai, who's a Shaktipat guru, goes around and would touch people and awaken this energy. And so, again, I thought this all sounded pretty hokey, but my girlfriend wanted to take this program, so I decided, okay, I've gone this far, I might as well do it, right? We did this program, and I'm meditating, and I'm anxious, and my body is uncomfortable, and my mind is going, and all of a sudden, there's this smell. It's sandalwood or something. I start to sense this energy, and all of a sudden, my body starts to sit bolt upright and starts to spin, circular spin, and I'm not doing any of this. I'm just observing it. All of a sudden, I feel this hand on my head and a pinch between my eyebrows. And it felt like this breeze of energy went through the top of my head, down through my throat, into my stomach, and then started to expand. My heart exploded. And the next thing you know, I was shot into space. And all I remember was about an hour later, a gong went off, and it was like coming out from the bottom of the ocean. And from that moment on, for the following 2 or 3 weeks, I was literally stoned. I was in bliss. My anxiety had disappeared. I felt connected to everything. things were sharper. My hearing seemed better. Colors were brighter. Insights were there. It was remarkable. And all this was despite my cynical mind saying that none of this stuff was possible. And then at that point, Guru Mai, and again, the name of this path is called Siddha Yoga. There is a meditation center in upstate New York in South Fallsburg. We decided to spend part of the summer in South Fallsburg with Guru Mai and just intensifying these practices really in a formal way. You get up at 4 a.m, you meditate, you do these chants, you do seva, which is selfless service, you eat all vegetarian, all these things designed to support that energy and make it expand. And then at a certain point, Guru Mai was going to India, where the mother ashram is. It's in Ganeshpuri, India. And my girlfriend at the time, whatever experience that I've just described to you, it was 100 times stronger for her. 100 times stronger for her. I mean, she was blown away by what had happened to her. And she says, "We're going to India." I said, "All right." Something was happening to us that was unbelievable. And so we ended up going to India and living in the ashram and doing some traveling throughout India for about 4 months.
Oh, wow.
You know, these ashrams, the real ones, and I say the real ones is because there's, in my opinion anyway, there's a lot of yoga teachers and so-called gurus that are not real. They look like gurus and they say the right things and they take your money. They're not the real thing. Mm-hmm. But I was extremely cynical the whole time. And despite myself, I started to become transformed. And so in the ashram, you would follow the ashram schedule, and everything in that schedule is designed to support and expand this energy that has has become awakened in you, but they liken it to like a flame. A little fire has been lit in you, and if you are disciplined and you do these practices, in Hindu they call it sadhana. If you live this pure life, that this flame becomes bigger and bigger, and it expands your consciousness. And likewise, if you don't live a good life, you can basically throw water on this experience, and you can become unconscious again. But living in the ashram and following the schedule, I just became more and more high. It was like I was on an acid trip 24 hours a day, but with clarity. And India was amazing also, just as a country.
Sure.
But,
why would you stop? Why would you stop doing that? Just finances or what?
Oh, that's a great question, Bob. That is a great question. You know, in order to keep this energy and this consciousness expanding, you have to live a very pure life. This is why the monks and the people who are very serious about getting close to the divine, they become celibate. They don't gossip. They get up very early. They live a very disciplined life. Like, all these disciplines help contain this energy. And the world is very, very tempting, you know? I still wanted to make it as an actor. There were still some scars in me that kept pulling me back out into the world. Remember how I described earlier that there are these scars that attach you to things?
Yeah.
I guess I have a lot of those attachments in me that I still wanted to prove who I was. I still wanted to have these relationships. I still got pulled back into the world. I wasn't ready to become like a monk, so to speak. And then once you get pulled back into the world, then that dynamic takes over. You know, all of a sudden you're out late and you're partying a little bit. The lust kind of kicks back in, and, you know, you're drinking a little bit. The world kind of pulls you back in, and that kind of life pulls you away from the life of meditation and spirituality. And ultimately, you even forget about it. You forget you even had those feelings. It becomes a memory. And that's kind of what happened to me. Yeah.
Based on that, I know you have a very strong spiritual belief. What is your thought on the afterlife? Because there's the part of us on earth that want the carnal, earthly, material pleasures. We either get numbed by it or seduced by it. But what is your thought about, through this whole spiritual journey? Stayed with you, obviously. What's your thought about the afterlife? And I assume reincarnation is a big part of your belief system.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the mechanics of how all of this works. I think ultimately the goal is to experience the divine within yourself. I hate to use this word. I hate to keep saying God. I just don't have a better word. That word kind of points to an experience. The goal of human life is to become established in that experience, to realize the unity of everything, to become established in that. But the mechanics are we're all on this journey, lifetime after life, just the way it works. I don't know why the supreme being or what have you set it up that way, but just like there are physical laws, there are spiritual laws. And I believe that a soul starts out very, I guess, kind of dense, and then gradually, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, the soul has a chance to evolve, to become more and more conscious. And as the soul becomes more and more conscious, it goes into a higher and higher life form, finally ending in a human life form. And then once you're in a human life form, there are lessons that you have to learn with each lifetime. And sometimes you learn them and sometimes you don't. I think it's sort of like the graph of the S&P 500. It kind of goes up, but then it goes down, but then it goes up, but then, but over time it keeps going up. And then in between each lifetime, the soul has to go somewhere. So I believe it goes into what you call the afterlife. You're not embodied in physical form anymore. The soul is still there with all its memories and all that, but it has to go somewhere. So I believe there are all different realms. I guess if you lived a very dark life, there are realms that are pretty nasty. You might call them hellish, but I don't believe that any of that is eternal. I think you probably have to work out some karma in some of these realms for a period of time. And then you become embodied again and you have another chance to work it out. Or let's say your soul is very, very pure and very, very good. And the afterlife for you may be somewhat heavenly. And I'm sure there are many, many, many degrees of heavenliness and hellishness, depending on how you lived your life. But ultimately, you come back into human form and you have another chance. The Hindus call this the cycle of birth and death. And, an interesting question might be is why Earth? I think it's because in the earthly physical plane, karma can be worked out the quickest. In a way, in physical reality, you do something wrong, boom, you get slapped in the face. You do something good, you kind of know it. So the earth, the physical plane is sort of like a very fast-paced learning plane, Yeah. We have the chance in physical embodiment to advance very, very quickly. And then this just keeps happening again and again and again till finally you become what they call self-realized. You achieve union with God, union with the divine, and then you escape the circle of life and death.
Yeah, you see what's interesting, for not just this particular discussion, but the whole, what this podcast is based on and your movie, Bob, your documentary. It's like you have all these guests who come from such a vast array of different professions and beliefs, whether it's religions in some aspects, it's if people are into even cryptids, or people are mediums, or they're witches or shamans, or they're into near-death experiences, like whatever avenue people's interest in particular fields of study, it's like they all have these similar fabrics, or I should say like yarns that make into one of the same fabric. So there's a lot of overlap between all these. For example, about somebody's near-death experience, which may not on the surface have anything to do with someone who believes in aliens and the different theories of what aliens are and who they are. It's like they sound so different, or in this case, as Gene's talking about, this kind of spiritualism, it's like they all have these overlapping belief systems. And for me, it's more than interesting because they start to all coincide. They all start to overlap with their ideas and they feed into each other in a positive way to help, I don't know, like establish what I think, is somewhat of considered as pseudoscience, this realm of the paranormal. But it's just like the more these crossovers happen, the more I get excited just to see the validity that is being created, I think, anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kyle. I mean, it's kind of like intentional or not. I mean, having all these different guests. I was listening to Gene, and there was like 5 or 6 different podcasts where people mentioned things, even in the documentary with Bob Berman, his experience of one at the end. I'm like, there's a lot of things he's saying I can almost stitch into this fabric or this tapestry of Gene.
Yeah, it's totally,
it's a lot of like
cool.
common threads, which is kind of cool. So
yeah,
that's awesome, Gene. Thank you so much. I think we want to close with one more question. I know you have a magic background, and I think Kyle has an interest in magic, and I was curious, Kyle, you wanted to ask Gene something while we had him before we
let's get into magic real quick. Well, I'm a big Magic the Gathering player, the card game, the nerd stuff, which is completely different than the magic that you do, Gene. But anybody who is not familiar with the Magic Castle out in Los Angeles, Gene, you have performed there, and just to let everybody know, well, I should say, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Magic Castle is actually like it's a fantastic place to visit if you're in LA or even if you live there. They have some of the world's best magicians perform there. I think you have to be invited to perform there, so they only take like the very best. Gene has been there. You've been there.
Mm-hmm.
So fill in some of like how that came about for you. Have you been a magician since you were young, and how'd you get to the castle? And tell us a little bit about that whole experience and what the Magic Castle is.
Sure. I've been a magician since I was about 13 years old. Me and this kid, Ricky Rubin, started the Long Beach, Long Island Magic Club. He ended up becoming Rick Rubin, the huge music producer. I continue to do magic most of my life. It's an interesting thing, an interesting story, just to tie it in with the spiritual stuff. I'd always done magic, and in my 20s, I had been a bartender at a huge club in New York called the China Club, which is just the exact same time that I was getting involved in City Yoga and Guru Mai. After I had gotten back from India, I was about to return to my job, be a bartender, and I remember asking my guru, is it okay if I return to bartending? And she bluntly said, no, find another skill. And I literally said, well, I will, but I need to support myself for a while till I find another skill. I get back to New York, walk into work. They say to me, Gene, we're sorry. We've decided that you don't fit in here. And I lost my job. On that day, I had to come up with a plan of how I was going to support myself. And I decided to start promoting myself as a professional magician. And I did. And I started getting jobs, and from that day on, in addition to working as an actor from time to time, I became a professional magician. Yeah, I performed all over New York, and when I moved to LA, I started performing here. I hooked up with a really cool entertainment company, and the first client I had in LA was Julia Roberts. And I had auditioned for the Magic Castle. I had a sponsor, and I was accepted there and was a member for several years. Then you have to do a second audition in order to perform, and I did and was invited to perform there. So I became a performing member of the Magic Castle, which is, as you've stated, a really amazing venue for world famous and not such famous magicians. Yeah, it's an old Victorian castle up in the Hollywood Hills. Absolutely amazing place.
And it's so cool. Like I've been there a couple times, not performing, just as an audience member. Of course, you pay, and they have a nice like bar section. They have some food. They have various rooms where magicians perform.
That's right. And you have to be invited. So someone must have given you a pass or taken you in, because you can't just walk in and pay. It's like an invite-only place.
Yeah, exactly. It's you can't just walk in off the street. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't remember how I was invited, but
yeah, no, you were fortunate. A lot of people can't get in there.
And it's such a cool place. Yeah.
There's a main stage, a parlor, and a close-up gallery. Yeah.
And does that have anything to do with? Well, I should say also, what kind of magic do you perform?
I do walk around adult magic, which is sleight of hand, cards, and that sort of stuff, corporate events and bar mitzvahs. And I also do kids' parties, which is completely different. It's more,
imagine, yeah.
It's still magic, but it's a lot of silliness and a lot of fun.
But yeah, mention some of your clients though, Gene. Robert De Niro, Julia Roberts.
That's right. That's right. Gwyneth Paltrow, Robert Downey Jr. Just a lot of celebrity clients. Yeah.
Is there any crossover between when you perform as a magician and anything of the paranormal, or is that just like two different ball games that we're talking about?
Yeah, it's pretty much two different ball games. You get in, you do your show, you leave. You don't really get into much discussion with people about the paranormal, although I think it has happened from time to time.
Yeah, it feels like some of the, the celebrity magicians, if you will, like David Blaine comes to mind, and I guess Chris Angel, they seem to have a pretty dark edge to some of the stuff they do. I'm sure that they're probably questioned about like paranormal stuff.
Yeah. My style is pretty different. They try to create an atmosphere of like, this is mysticism, and where my style is more like, I just try to goof on people and it be funny, and it's still high level magic, but I try to tap more into the humor of it than trying to pretend that this is some sort of mysticism.
That's cool. Yeah. So no pulling people in half.
Well, I do a sawing in half illusion, but
nice.
It's funny.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is probably a good segue, Gene, because you've done a couple shows for me at Broadway at my company. So let's just talk about your two side businesses. Gene, believe it or not, is also a professional photographer of all the things he does. He does headshots, Kyle, actually, for a lot of actors. So consider him next time you're in New York.
There you go.
And he also does magic shows. He does a lot of great corporate events. So you haven't done any virtual stuff, Gene. It's all live, right? I know a lot of people that did virtual stuff.
Actually, this year and a half, I have done some Zoom shows.
You have? Okay. They're
really challenging, but they are possible.
So how do people reach out to you? Because I can certainly give a testimonial that you're a smash success when, at a corporate venue. How do people reach out to you for magic shows or even for photography?
My photography website is Gene Silver's Photography. Magic, I don't know if I should give my phone number out on this or not. Maybe I'll give my email, okay?
Sure.
It's Silvers, Silvers, Gene @gmail.com, and you can reach me that way.
Sure, but only for magic shows, nothing else. Okay? Not for LSD or any of that stuff.
No, I'm not going to be your supplier.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. Like we have Bob, your guest, tune in for some paranormal stories, and they got a little of actors talking about some drugs and the full Hollywood experience.
Yeah.
It's totally cool.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to put this into two shows because it's like the first 40 minutes was some actor stuff, and then we did a really cool deep dive, which went down a side trail, which is great.
And FYI, I do both my magic and headshots on both coasts. I live primarily in LA, but I'm also in New York a lot.
That's awesome. That's cool. So, Kyle, anything else before we sign off, or?
No, that was, I think we covered a lot. Obviously, we could do more, but I think we did a lot.
Excellent. So, as always, Kyle, thank you for your time today. I always have a fun time when we do these shows.
Me too. Thanks for inviting me to do this. It was great talking with you and Gene, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah. And Gene, it's great to reconnect. It's been a couple of years since we have talked. So proud of you, man. So proud to see you on. Your career's still going great and all the things that you do, and learned a lot from me today. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
Oh, of course, Bob. Of course. It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast. Please subscribe and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay scared.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit afraidofnothingpodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's afraidofnothingpodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode, and the world will know how swell you are.